was dancing when I was 12. I was dancing when I was 12. I was dancing when I was out. I was dancing when I was out. I danced myself right out the womb. I danced myself right out the womb. Is it strange to dance so soon? I danced myself right out the room. I was dancing when I was 8. I was dancing when I was 8. Is it strange to dance so late? Is it strange to dance so late? I dance myself into the tune.
Mr. Chairman, what we have seen in the past few weeks is not picketing at all. It is an attempt by force to prevent others from doing what they have a right to do. It is intimidation. It is unlawful assembly. Our duty demands and the national interest requires that we see that violence does not pay and is seen not to pay.
Yeah.
Let violence cease. Let the law be kept. That is the spoken and unspoken hope and wish of millions of our fellow citizens.
I dance myself out of the room. Is it strange to dance so soon? I dance myself into the tune. Again, once more. I dance myself out of the room. I dance myself out of the room. Is it strange to dance so soon? I dance myself out of the room.
And in the tightest possible vote, with a very, very few votes indeed between it, the conference has decided that the National Union of Mine Workers shall organise a return to work on Tuesday, and that the dispute in this industry will continue.
Started sewing again recently. It gives my hands something to do, calms my nerves somewhat. Not that I have anything to be nervous about, but one hears things. Violence. Not around here. It is a respectable area after all. It's been quite a trip in the past. the sewing. I worked a few years in a lovely little clothing shop in the centre of town. It was meant to be by women for women. That was the idea, at least. Sadly closed a few years ago. I suppose it's cheaper to buy from big brands than boutiques. But one can't help but feel that community spirit is strained somewhat. Edward, my husband, he's been so busy recently that he hasn't had a chance to write. I don't blame him, of course. Being a member of Parliament is no easy job. We had to fight tooth and nail to get to this point. It's not going to be thrown away because he wants to spend more time at home. We all have to make sacrifices. But I would have appreciated a letter. Just to know what's going on more than anything. The world isn't like it was when I was a little girl. There's a distinct lack of tradition nowadays. Though I am content with the knowledge that the seeds I sow will blossom into beautiful flowers, I believed myself a valued member of the community, a voice that would be heard and respected. I found myself, however, being drowned out by the foolishness and ignorance of those people. When I brought up how it might affect others, they screamed tradition, that they were trying to get rid of their livelihoods. I presume they are us, the politicians who have the interests of the country at heart. If that means that a few pieces of dead weight have to be cut off, then so be it. It's about the nation at large, not just one mine. But who am I to stop them? Edward assured me that we would have light and heat no matter how long it goes on for. Though I can't imagine it to be more than a couple of months at most. Edward thinks it'll only be a few weeks, but I think I've got a better finger on the pulse here than he does in London. I usually do. Anthony wrote to me recently to tell me how he's doing. He's in his third year at Imperial, philosophy. He says that he won't be able to join us at Easter. He'll be travelling with some friends of his. They planned some sort of getaway to the countryside. It's a shame, though. When they were growing up, we always used to have the most wonderful family meal. Even Jonathan will be coming. But I suppose a mother must let her children find their own path. It's just, well, some of these friends are, not that I have anything wrong with that, I just personally think that Anthony could find better company than them. Actors. I suppose I should not worry so much, but a mother can't help but want to guide her child in the right direction.
When I tell people about my job, they tend to think I hate it. I don't, really, I don't. I just think it's easy to focus on the negatives. There aren't exactly many big wins when it comes to the local council, especially when the only reason you have your job is because your boss is friends with your granddad. Who was. Donna tells me I have to make my own victories, but I think that's easier said than done. Compared to what she does every day for a living, I haven't really got a right to complain, I suppose. The funeral was last Sunday. Granddad's. There were a lot of people there. I suppose he was a pillar of the local community. There's many war friends, people from his mining days, but there were a few people from the union, from the mayor's office as well. It was a nice send-off. He would have liked it, I think. We sort of lost touch after Dad moved us to the town centre. When I asked him why, he just said, "We're not miners anymore." That was that. Granddad stayed behind. I don't blame him. It was the house he grew up in, the street where his friends lived. I never really fit in with people. Donna's the only one I've ever really connected with, and even then that's because, well, I suppose you could call us childhood sweethearts. Oh, and Anthony. I'd almost forgotten about him. We were good friends back in college, but started drifting apart afterward. He went around Europe for a year, and I went to university. If he's back for Easter, I might try and catch up with him. Writing's actually been going really well recently. I don't know what it is, but I've been full of ideas. Probably should have been working, but you've got to strike while the iron is hot. Not that I'm ever going going to show anything I've ever written to anyone. I may have done English at university, but I am no author. It was always a dream of mine when I was younger, but there were expectations. I was never forced into anything. Dad never forced me to do anything I didn't want to do, but whenever I would suggest something for the future, it was always too risky or too intellectual for me. I was told to find a stable job. There's a legacy my granddad built, and I have to uphold it for the miners. Because if we don't stand with them, no one else will. That's a slogan Martin uses in the area. It's true though. Closing the mines didn't exactly go over well. I wanted to get some more writing in, but I had to leave early before the cleaner comes around. She just goes on and on about her kids. And maybe I can get some more writing in when I get home.
I love my kids, but sometimes they drive me up the wall. I swear I was never as messy as they are. They get that from their dad, which is obvious when you put them all in a room together. Dirtier and happier than a pig in, you know. Every time they run through a room, it's like a storm's blowing through. It was even worse when he had got back from the ship. Surprised they never mind him the amount of dust he was covered with. Reminds me of my dad. Well, my whole family really. Parkers have all been miners. If I was a boy, I'd have been one. To be honest, I don't actually mind the cleaning all that much. Gives me a bit of peace and quiet, especially when I'm out here. The kids know better than to disturb me when I'm hanging the washing up. Sometimes I pretend to hang things up that are already dry just to get away for a bit. Kids don't know any better, and neither does Owen. Owen went to sleep though, otherwise I have to carry her everywhere. Benefits of having a newborn. Owen's doing well at school. His teachers tell me he's very quiet but very intelligent for his age. I said, that's news to me, let me tell you. He's a little terror when he's at home. That's Owen the young one, not Owen my husband. Can't tell the difference most of the time though. I wouldn't be angry if he just came home on time. Every day lately he's been coming back later and later. You'd think someone on strike would spend more time at home, but he's always, as he calls it, discussing tactics with the other miners. I said if he's using words like that, he ought to be doing something other than mining. Go back to school for a start. Tactics, man. He's angry. We're all angry. I just think we can try to make things a bit better for the kids is all. They can tell though. They know something's going on. I always used to take them with me wherever I went, but how can I take kids to the picket line? At least they have fun making banners or soup, even if it does always end in a mess. We were going to the shops yesterday, we saw Mr. Woods. Me and Owen didn't think he ever left his house, but there he was. He taught Owen everything he knows about mining. He's always been a friend to the family. He's been through a lot, bless him. His wife passed away some time ago, and his sons are all grown up, so they aren't around him all that much anymore. To top it all off, his friend Mr. Moore passed away a couple of weeks ago. He was a good one too. Still cared about us miners, even after he became mayor. I should get a move on, start making tea. Taking a job cleaning one of those offices in town just to support us during the strike. Owen had best be back soon so I can get ready. It'll be his own fault if his tea's cold.
Still strange seeing everything going on at the pits and not taking part. Spent all my life in the mines, trained most of the young ones. It's good to see us standing up for the mines. I remember the last strike, it was 1972. Back then Roy, our youngest, he was still living at home. It was only a couple months before he met his wife. All the lads would come over discussing tactics, as Peter called it. He always had a way with words. Picked it up from the officers back in the war, I reckon. It's a shame. It's a shame he's gone. It was a lovely service. He'll be missed not just down here, but the town as a whole. He was a good man and He only let that get to his head sometimes. It was actually him who introduced me to Edith. Well, he tried it on with her first, but that doesn't sound nearly as romantic. It is a shame. The weeks have been a lot less interesting ever since. Easter's coming up soon. I offered to cook, but both James and Roy's wives won't let me relax for the day, they always tell me. They have no idea what they're missing out on. The kids will be over, of course, and Martin. Martin's the odd one out in the family. He works in a factory just outside of town. He's a supervisor. Martin's not married, but he's met his young lady. Oh, what's her name? Jean, that's it, JJ, Jean the journalist. Memory's not gone yet. She works for the paper. She's a very charming young woman, very modern. I'm just hoping that they get married soon. Just hoping Martin will be part of the family again. Be nice to have another person come over and visit. That's not to say nothing's happening. I'm still doing my bit for the strike, even if I can't really well take part. And it's not that I'm retired, mind you. I'd be there day and night if I could. It's my legs, you see. But that's not to say I'm not doing nothing. I'm still doing what I can. When the mothers don't want to bring their children to the picket line, they drop them off here. They're more than happy to run around in the back garden, especially the miller's lot. Reminds me of James when he was their age, or what Edith told me about him. When James was born, I'd been deployed for France in 39. And I get too many chances to visit home. I think I have a letter somewhere. Maybe Edith can... Never mind.
I really don't like people who can't form their own opinions. People that change it depending on who they're talking to. People pleasers. Specifically, I'm talking about Mary. She's one of the office secretaries. Every time I ask her about something, anything, she'll wait until I've said what I think and then just agree with me. No matter what it's about. Either that or she's the most indecisive person in Britain, never deciding whether cats or dogs are better. She does it with everyone that talks to her. I don't hate her, though, even though it would be easy to. She's one of the only other women in the building, and without her, I'd have no one to talk to during the day. I don't think the men particularly dislike me. They just don't know how to talk to me. They're probably scared I'm going to start burning my bra if they start making conversation. They're the nicer ones, though. The others just ask me to make them tea or coffee if I walk past them, like I'm their personal maid, or... But it doesn't matter what they think. I'm just as much of a reporter as they are. In fact, more than a few times, I've gotten a headline over some of them. That's all I can do, really. Still, I'm doing what I love. I worked my way up from the very bottom to where I am now. It took me 14 years, and I'm not the kind of person to just throw all that time and effort away. Even if it can be hard sometimes to be heard. Growing up, my mum was, well, selfish. It's the only way to put it, really. Everything I did was in comparison to her. She controlled my clothes, my makeup, who I saw, even what I did with... When I was 16, I left to go and live with my Aunt Liz. She's made me the person I am today, and I'm happy with who I am. The person I'm seeing right now, Martin, is going to get me an interview with one of the union reps of the area. I want to do a piece on the strike and how it's affected the miners' daily lives. He can be a sweetheart, even if he doesn't show it a lot. Not that we're going to take it any further than how it is now. It's just something casual, you know. I don't really see myself as wife or mother material. Not right now, at least. There's still more for me to do.
Laura's been looking a bit pale lately. I started noticing after her birthday back in June, and I know it's only been a month, but I can't help but worry. It's because she's not eating properly. None of us bizarre. But how can we when the only money we've got is a bit from the unions and a bit from me cleaning a few offices? I'm still for the strike. Of course I am. We'll keep fighting no matter how long it takes. But how long will it take? How long till the violence gets worse? Till kids have to grow up without their dads? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. Not Thatcher. Not Scargill. Not Owen. It's getting harder for him to smile. Even around the kids. I don't know who invented summer holidays, but they obviously weren't a parent. 2 of them I could handle, but 3! It's like a nightmare sometimes. You'd think they were all newborns the way they're always shouting. At least Laura and Owen like to play with soap while I'm making their tea. I wish my brothers had been like that. Little devils they were, all of them. Minors now, of course. They've all got it tough. I'm trying to get more hours cleaning those offices, but all they've got are night shifts. It's like being in school after everyone's gone home. Not that I spent any more time in school than I had to. After I turned 15, I took odd jobs about town, make some money for myself. I had 5 young brothers and Mum took care of the house full time, so it wasn't like there was any money to spare. Thought I'd do my part for us. I suppose that's why I don't mind doing the cleaning. I'm used to that sort of thing. The jobs no one wants to do. That's how I met Owen. Not cleaning. I was filling in at one of the pubs for a girl who'd gotten pregnant. We practically grew up together, but we hadn't really spoken to each other for a few years at that point. He was a proper flirt back then, telling me how beautiful my eyes are. Now, well. If I'm being honest, this has put me in a foul mood. I'm too tired to do anything, but I can't just sit still. It's so lonely when Owen's not here, but he gets back and we just start arguing over the littlest things like when is he going to fix the kitchen shelf or if he'll be home on time for tea tonight. I feel like I don't know how to have a normal conversation with him anymore. It's always about the strike with him, or how the Tories and police treat them poorly, or how Labour are dragging their feet, especially our mayor, who I don't think has ever seen a mine. And it's all true, of course, but I can't help. Sometimes I wish it would go back to the way it was before. I wish he'd tell me my eyes were beautiful again.
It has been recommended that all members of the council refrain from commenting on the ongoing difficulties within the mining community, particularly any that would indicate the Labour Party's support for the actions being undertaken by members of the NUM. The High Court has ruled the strike as illegal due to the lack of holding a ballot, and thus party leaders have decided to distance themselves from the NUM and strike as a whole until a party-wide decision has been reached. Betrayal is the only word for it. I thought we were meant to be the party of the people, the ones that would stand for the working class when no one else would. I'm not even a politician, and I feel like I've lied to them. Lied to the families that are relying on us. I thought I would at least do some good in this job. Even if it wasn't what I wanted to do, I would... Even the paper isn't happy, and they've been against the strike since day one, calling us turncoats, criticising Labour for taking too long. I don't know how Donna does it. I mean, it's not like she doesn't get upset. Some days she gets back, but then, the next day, she's right back to it. She's let herself become distanced from it, in a way. She's been busy recently. I feel feel like we're only walking past each other. It's been difficult. I don't exactly have many friends here, and probably the youngest person in my office by about 15 years. That being said, I did manage to speak to Anthony again over the summer. He looks well. Says that he's figured out a lot about himself. Wants to go into politics. Stay down in London, following his father's footsteps. I'm guessing he was never told something was too intellectual for him. Not that I'm jealous or anything like that. Just sometimes I can't help but wonder what it might have been like to live his life. I don't know. Maybe it's not any different. I wish I could say I've been writing recently, but to be honest, I've been distracted. I've been looking at rings. For Donna, for proposing, just looking. We've been together for a long time, but I don't know. It's better to keep things as they are, wait until the right moment, whenever that is.
Hoping it stayed warm for a bit longer. Cold's not good for my legs, never has been. It gets worse every year. Getting old is a funny thing. At first it's so slow you barely notice it, and then the next day everything aches. I still remember going to the dancing halls of Edith when we were younger. This was before the war, of course. We'd go from when we got off work until closing time just to spend as much time together as possible. I'd do anything to see her again. It would have been our 45th anniversary at the end of this month. Instead, in January, it'll be 20 years since she passed. She was ill. There wasn't anything they could do for her. It was peaceful. At least I got to speak before she... But there's still so much I wish I could tell her. What was I... Oh, yes, the cold. I think it's going to be a long winter this year. It'll be hard on the ones who can't afford coal. The last big one was only a month or two. My boys are still holding on though, still at the front of the picket line. Good on them. I'm proud, but then again, I can't help but be a bit worried for them. Back in June at Albury, there was that big fight. All it takes is a gang of police officers to get the wrong idea and they'll end up in a hospital bed for a month. I don't want that to happen to them. Look at me, stressing like a pig at a butcher's. I shouldn't be worried, really. They're all smart lads. Maybe it's for the best that Edith isn't here to see this. She's never really good at these kinds of situations. Probably came from my time in the war. Never really talked about the war with anyone, well, anyone who didn't serve. Even then, me and Peter rarely brought it up, and it's not because we had any of that, what's it called? PTS something. We didn't bring it up because there was no need to. It was over. Well, I've given it a lot of thought recently. Apart from the time when I was a kid and the past 4 years, it was the only time I wasn't working down the mine. Well, it was the only time I wasn't in our town, really. There's something to that. I'm not quite sure what it is, though.
Christmas, I must admit, is a weakness of mine. I've loved it from a young age. When I started my own family, I grew to love it even more. It isn't just the decorations, the food, the happiness, but the togetherness that truly makes it special. Edward is finally going to be home. He promised at least 2 weeks, and Anthony will be coming with him. He's been working in London alongside Edward, learning the ropes. I'm going to buy him a nice briefcase for Christmas, as as well as a new tie. I plan to get Edward a lovely pair of silver cufflinks. And Jonathan, I still need to think about what to buy him. It's not a problem though, there's still plenty of time. Jonathan's always been a bit, well, distant is the word, I suppose. He wasn't a badly behaved child. Edward and I made sure to teach him proper etiquette, and he went to the top school in the area. In fact, sometimes he could be rather quiet, but I believe that is a sign of great intellect. He was my first child, so I could be rather protective at times. I wanted him to understand the work that his father does. I fear I treated him more as a junior politician than a son. Unintentionally made him feel. Perhaps a watch. Yes, a watch would be nice. He's working in banking, so it'll be appropriate. I've always kept and sorted my letters. I have more than 24 boxes, all of the letters from a year, sorted alphabetically by sender and date received. I like to look through them sometimes, remember what the year was like, even if only from the perspective of someone else. Nothing is more exciting than attempting to work out what I'd said to this person in the previous letter. The answers are all there, so it becomes a puzzle whether I can decipher the questions I asked. It's like a crossword, only one can't ask for help from others. I suppose it can be a rather lonely game at times. The reason that I keep all of the letters, however, is simply so that I have a record of them. The written word is like a memory. To throw it away carelessly would be to let the past fade. My mother still has all of Father's letters. They helped her tremendously when he passed. That being said, there should perhaps be some people kept away from ink and paper, by which I mean most of the so-called reporters for the local paper, specifically that Miss Gibson, who wrote the needlessly negative column on Edward's plans for constituency. Now, she's written about Richard Moore, the jumped-up miner's son planning on standing in the next election against Edward. I shall be sending a rather strongly worded letter about her to the paper. Perhaps then they'll stop covering the strike. The illegal strike, I should say, which still appears across the front pages. It's not as if they had any reason to start it in the first place, but now they're only doing it for the attention. Why can't they understand how much their actions affect others?
I thought being a journalist meant I could write about whatever I wanted to, not just regurgitate whatever the editors gave me. Paper's very much anti-strike, which means there can't be a single good thing about it anywhere. They even made me write an article criticising Labour for not being against the strike sooner. It's not my opinions are, well, it's not that they've changed, it's just a separation of personal and professional views. Basically what I'm trying to say is, this sucks. This whole situation. Am I lying to myself if it's the only way to keep my job? The job I worked so hard for, the job I kind of maybe hate? But it's not like I can just go somewhere else. Not only would I have to spend another 14 years getting to where I am now, but all the newspapers are saying exactly the same stuff. How dare the miners fight for their right to work? I wrote an article among the miners and how many are struggling to heat their homes this winter. The editor said they loved it. Very insightful. Then, a week later, I see the headline, "Stubborn miners freezing their children." Suppose I should be used to that kind of thing by now, but it still stings. My Aunt Liz says this is the exact time we need to push back harder. They expect you to just follow along with what they're doing. They expect women to just follow the orders they're given. She's a bit of a feminist, if you can tell. But it's not one big thing, it's just hundreds of little jabs every day. I wonder if that's how Thatcher feels, having to be constantly ready to face yet another man criticising whether she's good. Having said that, I respect her. That doesn't mean I necessarily agree with, to be honest, most things. but I do understand and appreciate the amount of work she's put into getting where she is now. Wonder if she ever feels like she doesn't belong. Martin's been trying to cheer me up. He doesn't quite get it, but he's trying. I do feel a bit guilty sometimes, though. I'm basically using it as a human stress ball. At the same time, though, that's all that this is. Whatever this is. He's been trying to convince me to come along to his family's New Year's celebrations. And to be honest, I don't want to go. I went there for Easter and it was fine, but I don't want to be the odd one out again. His dad seems to think we're going to get married any day now, which wasn't half what I put in. I told him I'd think about it, which I'm hoping he'd figure out means no, but apparently not. I'm not even sure why he goes to those family gatherings anyway, yet alone why he wants me to come with him. From what I can tell, he doesn't have the best relationship with his dad, which, you know, I can understand. But I think he wants to work on it, and he should. But for me, it was just easier to cut ties.
I don't have many regrets, but then I haven't done much of my life. Simple life for a simple man. Maybe I could have done more for the people around me. Recently, I'm not sure why, but I've been thinking about Henry. He was our third child. He was born a year after Martin. You'd swear they were like twins, those two. Always running around James's legs like a pair of dogs. That's a happy memory. It's one I try to keep in mind. He was 4 when Edith was heartbroken. He was a happy child, full of joy, laughter. Even when times were hard, he never cried. He was our child, and then he was gone. Edith spent most of her time focusing on Roy. I did what I usually did, went down to the mines. James, well, he was old enough to take care of himself. Martin, he had no one. Maybe that's why he's so distant. I wish I could say sorry, really say sorry to him. I remember in France, and I was wounded. Nothing much, just a graze, really. At the time, I thought how lucky I was to be alive while so many of the people I grew up with died out there. But eventually, your luck runs out. Eventually, it's your time. Eventually, you see them all again, all the ones that came before you. Eventually, you can correct your mistakes, your regrets, or maybe sooner, rather than later.
It didn't go quite to plan, I admit, but it all worked out in the end. I didn't realise I'd accidentally left it at home, so I spent the whole time in the restaurant panicking, trying to find it. It's probably for the best that I didn't do it there. I probably wouldn't have been able to get all my words out. But when we got home, I rushed to go get it, got back, got down on one knee before she even closed the front door. She said yes. It feels like a weight has been lifted from my shoulders, one that I didn't even know was there. I've taken a week off work, and Donna hasn't had any shifts the past 2 weeks, so it's just been the two of us. I honestly couldn't ask for anything more. When I told Dad, I think he was just more surprised that I actually turned around and did it. All that matters is we're getting married in the summer, and I couldn't be happier. It feels like the first real choice I've ever made for myself in quite some time. More and more miners are heading back to work. crossing the picket line. The union's out of money, and most of these people have families, children. You can't blame them, especially after the winter they've just had. I wouldn't be surprised if the strike breaks soon. It's just not feasible anymore, and maybe that's for the best. Maybe it's not worth losing any more lives. I don't know. I suppose it's not really my place to say. I'm still writing, on and off. I'm not as reliant on it as I was before. It used to be the only thing I did when I wasn't working or with Donna. I actually showed some of it to her recently, which was harder than proposing, but she seemed to like it. Strange. I used to write because it allowed me to be alone. But now, with an audience, I'm writing because it's fun. And it is fun, even if it's a little bit rough around the edges. It is, I think, a positive step forward.
I thought it would be this big moment, the end of the year-long strike. I thought maybe society would be shaken to reconsider its way of working. Or maybe that's just what I was hoping for. Would have made for a far more interesting story after all. Instead, they just went back. Some places with a lot more fanfare, admittedly. But they just got on with it, back down the mines again. They really did just want their livelihoods back. I'm guessing miners finally returned to work after wasting everyone's time will be the headline for the next few weeks. Not that it matters to me anymore what they print. Though I can't say why yet. They haven't officially signed me on. But I'm sure it'll be fine. They said I've got the job, I just haven't done the paperwork yet. So I handed in my notice last week. I realised I wasn't being true to my beliefs and my opinions, and that I was lying to myself and the people reading my work. When I told Mary I was leaving, she said she knew somebody that worked for Spare Rib and that she could get me an interview. They must have really liked me because they basically gave me the job on the spot. Now I can write about whatever I like, with a specific focus on women's issues, which, believe me, I am completely okay with. For the first time in a while, I feel excited to go to work. As for me and Martin, he's grieving. His dad passed away recently. He said he wants to be alone for a while, which I completely respect. And I thought this might be a good place to end whatever we had going on. It was fun for a while, but we wanted different things. He wanted a family, and I don't know yet. My career is what's important to me. And for my career, I think I might move somewhere else. Maybe London. My Aunt Les even said that she'd come with me. She said she's always wanted to live there. But before I go, I want to do an article on the miners and about the people that went on strike, not just the union reps. How they got through it, was it worth it, that kind of thing. I want to talk to the wives and mothers as well and ask them what they did to help. I wonder if Annie remembers me. She might be a good place to start. But either way, change is coming, for me and the country. And no matter what happens, I will face it head on. And probably write an article about it.
I've always appreciated silence. I'm used to being on my own. Not for lack of friends, but simply because it's an important skill to have. To be able to entertain oneself when circumstance means that one is alone. Edward is still in London. Despite most of the difficulties being over, he has very important work to do. Happiness is secondary to success. That being said, he assured me that as soon as he'd finished his current workload, he would leave the rest in Anthony's capable hands and return. Even if there is less silence, I should be glad to have Edward in the house again. He had to leave very suddenly just after Christmas, so a longer stay is certainly in order. I've already started preparing material for the next election. We work best when together. Anthony's been fitting in very well. It seems that London is very agreeable to him. I can't stand the city myself. You must get it from Edward. The last time he wrote, he told me that he loves how free and open everyone is. How people can be who they wish to be. I decided not to tell him how immoral some of those people can be. He's still young and must himself learn of the correct way to live one's life. Thankfully, it seems that he isn't interacting with as many actors as he was before. Instead, he's become close friends with a group of the other junior politicians, which is much better. I've been trying to reach out to Jonathan recently to talk about his childhood. I don't wish to apologise. We did what was best for his future, but well, perhaps his side of things should be heard. He responded to my first letter, saying that he was very busy at the present time, and after that ignored all of my subsequent attempts at contact. That will not deter me. At least that strike has finally over. It seems to me that the only thing it achieved was to waste government time, cause violence, tear families apart. As far as I can tell, it was an illegal act meant to stir up trouble for some ulterior motive, most likely funded by the USSR. I had hoped that the violence at Orgreave would allow many to realise that what they were doing wasn't fighting for a noble cause, but causing chaos as a result of lies. It was foolish and dangerous. Truly, I would be surprised if anyone is actually happier because of it.
The first thing I said when he told me the strike was over is that they could have waited 3 more days, make it a full year. That's a lie. The first thing I did was hug him and cry. I think he cried too, though he'll never admit it. I don't know if we were crying because we were sad or happy. I suppose it doesn't really matter now. Of course, there are still some people who are angry. There always will be. But I think most of us are just tired. Glad that things can go back to normal again. The strike was the right thing to do, right for this community, but it took a lot out of all of us. I guess that was their plan. Just wear us down until we had to go back. We didn't lose though, no matter what anyone says, especially that bloody newspaper. Speaking of papers, I saw Jean down by the pit the other day. She used to babysit me and my brothers when we were little. She told me she works for a women's magazine now, and they let her write about what she wants, with her own opinions. The reason she was down there is because she was interviewing some of the miners about what the strike meant for them, instead of just union reps and MPs. Why they did it, why it was important. I'm glad she's doing it, for all our sakes. I haven't stopped cleaning those offices, but I'm not taking the late shifts anymore, and I'm getting a good amount of sleep now. The kids still do violin sometimes. I always try to have a chat with someone if they're in one of the offices, but most of the time they don't give me the light of day. But this one bloke actually started talking back to me. Turns out he's the grandson of old Mr. Moore. Bless him, we had a right good talk. Told me he proposed to his girlfriend and that he's thinking of quitting his job. I said I can't blame him, I can't wait to stop coming here. We had a little giggle. He's a nice boy. I think his granddad would be proud. Although, speaking of Mr. Moore, Mr. Woods passed away just last month. It wasn't exactly a shock. He was 70, but I think most of us thought he'd make it through to the end of the strike at least. I suppose he did in a way. Not that he could have known. Not that any of us knew. He was a good man. He helped my family through the years. I almost forgot to say, me and some of the other wives went down to the pit the day the miners went back. That's when I saw Jean. We all went down to give the lads carnations at the gates. Owen asked me why, and I told him it was a symbol to show that you're all heroes. And you know what he did? He put the flower back into my hands and said that I was the real hero. The the one who got the family through all of this. And it was then that I remembered why I fell in love with him. Why that year was worth it. To see him smile like